Hello everyone, and welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Today we are telling a story that begins with a legendary on-screen partnership and arrives at a quieter, braver chapter, a creative leap taken by Elçin Sangu, and the steady support offered by Barış Arduç. If you enjoy long, carefully narrated pieces you can listen to with your eyes closed, you are in the right place. Please like, subscribe, and consider joining the channel to help us bring you more thoughtful coverage. Now let's get into it, step by step. First, context. There are pairings that pass through television like a summer breeze, and there are pairings that carve a channel through the landscape. Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu belong to the second group. Their work on Karalık Aşk did not just deliver ratings, it created a vocabulary fans still use to describe chemistry, timing, and the precise way two performers can anchor a scene with glance and breath alone. Years after the final episode, international audiences continue to discover that show and then search for interviews, behind-the-scenes moments, and any clue to how those scenes were built. That interest never really faded. It matured. While the public watched the visible part of the iceberg, something quieter developed beneath the surface. Elçin Sangu began to talk, gently at first and then with growing clarity, about directing. Not as a temporary detour, but as a craft she had been studying from the corner of her eye for years. She paid attention to blocking. She asked questions about lenses. She lingered near the monitor to understand how a performance translates into an image. Between scenes she kept a notebook that did not contain fan questions or wardrobe notes. It held shot lists, scraps of dialogue, and diagrams of how light falls across a character's face at different hours. Turning curiosity into a first feature, however, requires more than a notebook. You need a script that feels like your voice, producers who believe in first-timers, a cinematographer who understands what you mean when you say stillness is not the same as silence, and an ensemble willing to trust a leader who is new to the chair even if she is not new to the work. This is where loyalty enters the narrative, not as gossip and not as nostalgia, but as professional faith. According to people who have seen early pages and early plans, Barış Arduç did not treat Elçin's ambition as a headline, he treated it as a project. He read drafts with the concentration you bring to a first rehearsal. He asked questions that help a story find its bones. He opened doors that are usually labeled "not today," and he did it without announcing it from a stage. There is a message at the heart of that choice. In an industry that often rewards volume, he chose precision. Instead of posting encouragement, he gave notes that respected the script's intelligence. Instead of promising the world, he offered what actually changes outcomes, time, introductions, and an earned reputation used sparingly but effectively. When Elçin shared a version of the script that was structurally sound but still searching for its heartbeat, he sent back a handful of concentrated observations. Where is the moment the protagonist stops reacting and begins deciding? Which secret is best revealed in action rather than dialogue? Why the opening image should teach the audience how to watch the film? Those questions do not trend, but they make a film stronger. Producers, being what they are, asked practical questions. Is the budget realistic for the period and locations? Can this schedule protect the performances and still meet delivery? Does the script carry the cross-border appeal that streaming platforms now insist on? Elçin, drawing on years of front-row observation, arrived with answers instead of hopes. She brought pages marked with color tabs for every department. Costume notes aligned with palette notes. Location ideas included sun paths and sound concerns. A music plan sketched the emotional arc without relying on volume to replace feeling. The impression she gave was not actress tries directing. It was filmmaker shows her homework. And yet, even the best homework needs advocates. This is where the alliance becomes visible to those who look closely. Meetings that might have ended with polite compliments instead ended with actual next steps. A test day with a cinematographer to verify whether the proposed lens package can deliver both intimacy and scope. A conversation with an editor who knows how to protect performances from being carved into fragments. A quiet call to a casting director who can make one scene sing with the right day player. None of this is glamorous. All of it is decisive. Parallel to the logistics, a debate grew in fan communities with the energy only they can generate. Should Barış appear in a cameo as a nod to the partnership that built the myth? Or should Elçin's first film stand entirely on its own, without any echoes that might distract from a new identity behind the camera? Both sides argued with passion. One camp said that a brief cameo, 10 seconds, one line, a walkthrough, would be a gift to the audience that carried both artists for years. The other camp said that the cleanest cut is the kindest gift, because it frees viewers to meet Elçin as a director unfiltered by expectation. The truth is that either choice can be graceful if it is made for the right reasons and executed with restraint. Let's talk about style, because that is where directors live. People who have watched Elçin work up close believe her films will pay attention to the margins, hands at rest, ruse after someone leaves, the pause before a confession when a character arranges a glass just so. They expect careful blocking over flashy camera moves, and performances that develop in sustained takes where trust has to hold. They imagine color that is expressive but not loud, a score that supports but does not insist, and an editorial rhythm that respects the elasticity of time and memory. None of this means the film will be small. It means that large feeling does not need large gesture to be legible on a screen. Meanwhile, the rumble of industry machinery continued. Pre-production is a map of decisions. Which scenes can live on a location and which require controlled builds. Whether the opening needs the Bosphorus at dawn or whether the same meaning can be carried by the sound of fairies off-screen and a shadow crossing a wall. How to schedule actors who are juggling series work, theater rehearsals, and family life without turning the shoot into an endurance test. In every conversation, the question under the question remained the same: do we trust this voice? The more Elçin answered with clarity, the softer that question sounded. And where is Barış in the middle of all this? Sometimes close, sometimes deliberately distant, depending on what serves the work. There are days when the most supportive thing a friend can do is sit at the back of a table, read, and close the door on his way out. There are nights when the most supportive thing is a phone call that ends with a sentence like, "You have the scene, protected against hurry." There might be a day on set when he steps in for a test shot to help the crew lock a move before the real actor arrives. None of this requires a press release. All of it requires trust. For audiences, the most fascinating layer is how the myth of a pairing becomes the foundation for a new story that is not about romance and not about reunion. It is about loyalty that changes trajectories. Loyalty that says, "I will not use your project to make mine louder." Loyalty that also says, "I will put my name where it will help if you ask." In a culture trained to treat collaboration as currency, this kind of trust feels almost radical. It should not. It should feel normal. Perhaps this project will help tilt the balance. Does a first film always land? No. Sometimes it stands, sometimes it stumbles and then teaches its maker what she needed to know to make the second one sing. That is risk by definition, and it is why the people who help you take it are unforgettable. If the debut plays to full rooms and travels across borders, the victory will belong to a long chain of choices. If it misses, the courage to try will still be visible on every page and every frame. Either way, the work will tell the truth. As the pieces clicked into place, the conversations around the project grew sharper. Cinematography tests confirmed that a mid-range lens could sit close enough to catch thought without collapsing space. Casting meetings found faces that carry history without needing exposition. A composer sent a theme built from breath and strings, thin at first and then gathering texture as the story does. A production designer laid out a plan for rooms that could hold both tenderness and conflict under the same light. All of it suggested a film that trusts its audience to notice. Fans, for their part, did what fans do best when the energy is healthy. They organized watch parties for earlier work to raise funds for a scholarship supporting young filmmakers. They swapped lists of directors Elçin might be in conversation with, from local masters to international influences. They debated favorite scenes, not to demand a repeat, but to understand what made those scenes click. The rhythm of a line, the exact tilt of a head before a smile, the patient editing that lets a moment breathe. In other words, the conversation matured in step with the project. And so we arrive at the present tense. Elçin Sangu, actor turned director, stands at the beginning of a road she has been mapping for years. Barış Arduç stands near enough to help and far enough not to crowd the frame. The energy around them is not hype, it is anticipation. It is the feeling you get in a theater before the lights dim, when the room quiets itself without being asked. The legend of a television pairing has not been erased. It has been repurposed as scaffolding for a new structure that will stand or fall on its own. Thank you for listening to this story told with the care it deserves. If you value this kind of narration, patient, detailed, and focused on the work, please like the video, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and consider clicking the join button to support independent coverage. Tell us in the comments what you hope to see from Elçin's first film, and whether you want Barış to appear, even for a heartbeat, or prefer a clean slate that lets a new signature announce itself without echoes. Either way, what matters most is simple: when talent meets generosity, the screen expands, and everyone watching wins.